Hello, today's episode we're joined by Dr. Sarah Louisa Birchley. Sarah is a seasoned academic, consultant and researcher with over 2 decades of experience in Japan. Currently a professor in the Faculty of Business Administration at Toyo Gakuen University. She also serves as a director of international exchange, where she oversees global internship and study abroad programs across multiple countries. Sarah's research interests place a particular emphasis on self-initiated expatriate entrepreneurs and diaspora entrepreneurship. Beyond academia, she offers consultancy services assisting individuals and SMEs in Japan and the UK to navigate global markets. Sarah is also a board member of Global Welsh, contributing to initiatives that connect the Welsh diaspora to the world. Hello, Sarah. Good to
Hi,
be you.
Nice to meet you, Simon.
So perhaps you could tell the listeners a little bit about yourself, where you started in life and how you came to be in Japan.
Sure. So I'm originally from Cymru in South Wales, and my family is from that area and the Welsh valleys. My grandparents lived in Abertillery, so very Welsh mining roots as well. I grew up, I went to Crossy School, and after that I went to Exeter University, where I studied geography. So I was really interested in the world, and now as I talk, I guess today you'll see kind of my path and my journey and how it all kind of ties in together. But I did geography as my undergraduate degree, and then straight after university I came to Japan just to teach English, I thought, for 1 year, but 23 years later I'm still here.
Wow.
So it's been quite a journey, yeah. And then since I've been in Japan, I taught English, obviously, and then I decided to kind of retrain, and I did my master's in education and then a doctorate in education management, and switched into the management field and started to research in management, and got a job teaching management at a Japanese university.
Yes, but presumably there was a need to learn Japanese in between. And I was also curious to know if you grew up with Welsh as a language, and what's your relationship with languages?
So in terms of my relationship with Welsh in particular, no. Unfortunately, when I was a student, we didn't have Welsh at Crossy School. I think I went to 1 or 2 evening classes to learn some of the basics when I was in my teenage years, but we didn't have it as a taught class, so I'd never learned it formally. And I wasn't very good at French and German either, which we had to study in school. I wasn't not really, I wouldn't say I was a natural at languages at all. And then when I moved to Japan, I've just kind of learned it through being here, really. I haven't had formal lessons, but I've really absorbed it in the life that I've lived here. When I first moved, I moved to an area called Gunma Prefecture in northern Japan, and it was a very small rural village, very similar to Wales, lots of mountains, lots of rivers, and I was the only foreigner in the village, so I had to learn how to speak Japanese. I had to learn to survive, really. So that's how I was able to study. So that's my relationship with languages, and since then I've dabbled, try and study a little bit of Spanish, but not very much, when I was traveling in South America. And I've tried to learn Welsh through the Say Something In app as well, trying to pick it up, but unfortunately my Welsh is not as good as my Japanese.
Well, yeah, it's great to hear about that. So what's obviously your speciality is in entrepreneurship and business administration, and quite interested to know your thoughts on where you think Wales is at with regards to garnering entrepreneurship and helping individuals develop those skills. And my sense is that there are things holding Wales back in that front, and perhaps you could draw some comparisons with your experience in Japan.
Sure. So I think first of all, from my perspective, from the outside looking in, my experiences with entrepreneurship so far with Wales have been when I took a sabbatical in 2018. I was at Cardiff University during that time, and I was visiting different incubators, and really quite impressed to see what was going on in Wales, and to see the talent, the wealth of talent really, and creativity that there is in Wales. I was really taken by the community spirit among the entrepreneurs within the incubators that were working in Wales. That was kind of my very first experience of working quite closely in the entrepreneurship field. And then since then, I've been doing work with Global Welsh, and working with the investor research, looking at the diaspora entrepreneurs that we have. And what I've come to realize is that I think Wales sometimes lacks the confidence, maybe, and the structural ambition to be able to scale different ideas beyond the borders that they have. When I've done work in Latin America, and I've done a lot of work in Japan as well, and I see that in Japan we have a lot of long-term planning, and precision is really prized, I think. But then when I've seen my experiences in Latin America, you've got that kind of hustle and informality, and that kind of pushes innovation, I think, in some ways. But Wales can be quite risk averse, I think. And there can be a lack of, like I mentioned before, a lack of confidence, and kind of a hesitation, I guess, to celebrate success and to put themselves forward and to be proud of this entrepreneurial journey. So I think Japan, for all its stability, I think it does face kind of similar issues in that sometimes innovation might be stifled, not in the same way that it is in Latin America. And we have the hierarchy in Japan as well that makes it stifled to some extent. But I think Wales, thinking about Wales and where Wales can go, if they kind of experiment a little bit more global thinking, a little bit more confidence, without losing the values of what it is to be Welsh, I think that's where it could kind of become a truly entrepreneurial nation. I think the risk aversity and maybe just the lack of confidence and structural ambition maybe holding Wales back a little bit.
Do you think that some of that sort of self-preservation in an individual comes from the universities, government bodies, local authorities? There's the sort of status quo institutions. Are they doing enough? I know you said there that the hubs are quite innovative, but are the broader bodies doing enough to encourage that? You know, in this podcast, I've spoken to a lot of people that have got to their early 20s and realised if they wanted to make anything in their lives, they're going to have to leave Wales. And obviously, many of them didn't want to, but they just didn't feel there was the opportunity there. So what's your thoughts on that?
So I think a lot of the time, maybe Wales and the Welsh institutions, they manage rather than, they're set up to manage something rather than to help innovation. And like I mentioned before, those hubs, there are pockets really of excellence kind of scattered around the universities, the innovation hubs, the individuals. But as a whole, I think the system rewards the predictability and the stability over disruptive thinking. And what I've seen is that there are silos and not enough collaboration between the institutions that are trying to foster innovation and entrepreneurship. Like the government, academia, businesses need to be working much more in tandem to co-create solutions. And they're working in parallel, I think, at the moment, is what I can see. I don't see enough collaboration between all of the sectors within Wales to really make a difference. And I think also from the interviews I've done with Welsh diaspora, there's a fear of letting in something from the outside as well. Like I've talked to a lot of people over the last year that would like to come back and work in Wales, but they don't feel that they would fit in, or their way of thinking might not be accepted. So that ability to kind of just be a little bit more open to ideas from outside as well would help Wales. But I think in terms of the government bodies, the institutions, much more collaboration is vital, really.
And do you think that there needs to be, you talk about the openness there, more openness to the entrepreneurship of markets? there seems to be, from my personal experience as a business, as a mine engineer, there seems to be a reluctance to embrace new technologies, or even when inward investment is available, and a Welsh government or institutions aren't needing to raise the money. There seems to be a bit of standoffishness about that.
So from what I can see from being in Japan, we had an investor showcase, a Welsh investor showcase at the end of April. And the Welsh government put on a large event for around 200 Japanese potential investors and business people to showcase the best of Wales. And they focused on green energy and semiconductors and AI as the kind of the two main strands. And I think that's great to be able to promote Wales as a place for this kind of technology and these kind of more forward-thinking industries. But when I thought about it, I thought, I'm not sure how many Welsh people in Wales realise that Wales is doing this. And I saw kind of the gap there, that this is what was being promoted outside. But I wondered how many people actually realise that's the message that's going on. And then aside from these kind of big companies and big corporations, Wales is a country of SMEs, and trying to engage a lot more with these SMEs, I think, is vital as well, and not feeling like they're ignored, or if there are business owners overseas, diaspora members that want to bring their businesses back to Wales, reaching out to those SMEs is very important as well. It's not just always about the big players. I think that's where there's a gap as well.
Yeah, as you mentioned, SMEs, and obviously Wales has got a nascent space industry, which I have a personal interest in. And I think many people that are ignorant of that fact, and how much international relations have built around just that sector. Obviously, you've built learning programs across continents, and you speak there about the need to learn and collaborate and be a bit more open to the diaspora. So how could one put in place programs which would help build that international education within Wales?
So again, from outside, what I've heard and seen about what's happening in Wales is quite frightening. The state of universities and the closures and potential closures of different departments that we can see happening in Aberystwyth, I think, also in Cardiff University, University of South Wales. There's quite a lot going on in terms of funding issues and closing of departments, and especially in Cardiff, I know that the languages department, and especially Japanese department, is under threat at the moment, and that I think is a huge issue. If these international programs within our main institution, university in our capital city, if they are under threat and under closure, I think that's very dangerous for international education and for international understanding. But I think what I can see in Wales in terms of the exchange programs that happen, there's a lot of exchange, but I think we need to move into a collaboration model where universities collaborate more in international joint research projects with universities in Japan, for example. Students need opportunities to co-create. They need to work with peers all across the world. They need to solve real world problems together. It's not just about going and studying English or a language. They need to be working in joint research projects, I think. And if Welsh universities can focus more in that direction, I think it would be much better. I've seen myself how this can empower students. And even in Japan, I can see the programs that I create where they're working on joint international projects. For example, my university, we do a project with a university in Nepal, and students are doing product design, and they're working on designing sneakers and trainers with the Nepalese. These kinds of projects, I think, are what needs to be happening. And then we can position Wales as a global hub for social enterprise education, for example. There's great things going on at Cardiff Met in terms of entrepreneurship education. There's great things going on at Swansea as well. But I think if we kind of put together a picture of blending our tradition and our heritage that we have with innovation, and then tying that with global education as well, we can pull all the strands together and really have a vision for the future.
And presumably there's opportunity now with what's happening vis-a-vis the US administration. There's a great opportunity there to bring brains over to Wales from the US. But is to your knowledge and experience, is there a will or an ability for Welsh academia to do that?
I think one of the biggest challenges is funding, and being able to do like for like salaries, for example, to be able to have the right pots of funding available for research. I think that's where the issues would lie in being able to attract talent, is whether enough funding would be available to support them.
So is part of that then that there needs to be, to bring the money, is part of that we need to recreate the narrative around what it is to be a Welsh entrepreneur, to re-engage with the diaspora, to make them feel like they would want to go back to Wales, that there is a place for their money and their expertise and their skills and their life experiences.
Yeah, so 100%, absolutely. The diaspora are not just cheerleaders for Wales. They're not just like a cheer squad. They are the strategic asset that Wales has. And we look at Ireland, you look at what's going on in Scotland, they are really engaging with their diaspora in a very positive, strong way, and especially their diaspora entrepreneurs. You know, the Scottish Business Network, their global network of Scottish entrepreneurs is phenomenal. And we need to be engaging with the Welsh diaspora in this way, because the research that I conducted last year, we found that there is a strong number of Welsh entrepreneurs, investors that are ready to invest in Wales within the next 12 months. So we shouldn't be treating them as distant cousins or as cultural assets outside. We need to engage them as investors. We engage them as mentors, engaging them as co-creators of Wales's future, and wanting them to engage back into Wales. Whether these people are in Tokyo or Dubai or in Canada like yourself, these people all have insight and influence within the regions within which they live now, and we can be using those connections to be able to drive investment back into Wales, even if those people don't return back themselves. But we need to ask those people, and we need to engage them. And the biggest difference that we see, I think, between Wales and Scotland and Ireland is the lack of public-private collaboration in this field. And that's where I think organizations like Global Welsh, we can only go so far. But if we were really more closely tied or have a partnership with the Welsh government, we could do so much more.
I think there's a few questions that come out of that. Obviously, the Irish government and the Irish have for many years been very successul in engaging with the diaspora and really selling Ireland through them, as well as getting them to reinvest and be involved with shaping Ireland's future. But the Irish, from my view, they sort of sell Ireland to the broader world on the crack, as it were. One of the things perhaps Wales hasn't decided what it is yet, and whilst from my conversation with diaspora individuals, there's obviously an understanding and appreciation of the culture of Wales, and that's an extremely important part of any nation, but it can't carry you the whole journey when it comes to international investment. And there's also seems to be some tension between individuals both within Wales and in the diaspora, between the sort of the more South Walian English speaking and then the Welsh speaking part of the diaspora. That there does seem to be a little bit of clash there. So have you got any views on how we meld all that together and sort of try and create a story like the Irish have as what Wales is?
Yeah, that's a really, really good question. Like, what is Wales? What are we trying to promote? So again, what I've been able to see from what the Welsh government is doing in Japan, I'm using this as an example because this year is the year of Wales Japan. And so the Welsh government is putting all of their effort into making Wales visual in Japan, helping to build brand Wales. And their narrative at the moment is, yes, we have the cultural history and the heritage, but we've got a new Wales. We've got the high tech, we've got the semiconductors, we've got the AI, we've got the green energy, and building a lot on the sustainable generation. What was it? I can't remember the sustainable generation futures. The word's gone out of my head.
Sorry, I don't know either.
The Welsh government's it's the 10-year anniversary this year. It's just slipped out of my head. Sustainable Generations Act.
Not the Future Generation.
Future Generations Act. Yes, sorry,
Yeah,
Future Generation. I was thinking about, yes, Future Generations Act. So the future is the 10-year anniversary of the Future Generations Act.
Yeah.
And so promoting Wales on that platform in Japan is what they've done a lot of, and said this, this is what Wales is. We're future forward thinking. We've got the tech, we've got the green energy. So that's one kind of message about what Wales is that's being kind of put out there. But then you need the other side, the culture side, the rugby, the sport, the soft power and the sports diplomacy and things that go along as well to help promote brand Wales to the country. So when I saw last week, we have the World Expo at the moment is in Japan. And the Wales Day there, they had music, they had Welsh cakes, they had Welsh gin, they had Welsh whiskey to attract the Japanese visitors. And then the next step is they go into a zone where they learn about the technology, they learn about the businesses and opportunities. So tying those two together is how I see brand Wales from the Welsh government putting it to the Japanese people. But again, how much do the diaspora know about that even? And how are we engaged in that way? And then within Wales itself, do people in Wales feel the same about that and how Wales is being promoted? So I think there's just a huge communication gap between all of these parts, and we don't really have a strong brand Wales that obviously in the same way as Ireland, to touch on your first point. And then the second point about what was the second point, sorry?
Was about how you meld the different aspects of what individuals think of themselves as Welsh, because there's quite a difference between some people that see themselves through the language, the Welsh language, and others just like myself sound very English, but I'm Welsh.
Yeah, I think, and again, that came out through the research that I think it was almost 10%, 9% of people, the Welsh diaspora speak Welsh, and they identify their Welshness through their language, and that's members of the diaspora. And so when they are talking to people in their new countries, they're explaining themselves through that lens. And so there is a big difference then between north and south in terms of the way that you're identifying yourself. I think what Global Welsh is trying to do is, with a lot of the projects we've been working on, not just focus on the M4 corridor and just this image of what Wales is there, but reaching out into the other areas, other regions of Wales, and trying to help establish what that identity is, and helping those regions to push out their image of what they have to offer to the diaspora in a new and innovative way, because a lot of the diaspora don't know what's going on back in their hometowns.
And I think that's important that you raised that entrepreneurship and business knowledge and international relationships needs to be extended out into what is mostly a rural nation, as far as small towns and things. And I think of farming. I come from a farming family, and innovating there and having the international relationships, and you've experienced in South America, as have I, and that openness in South America to explore new crops or new technologies. An area that I have a little interest and knowledge in is, say, lab-grown proteins and things, or insect farming, which is done now quite a lot in South America because of the temperatures being right. So there are things like that that may be happening in Wales, but one doesn't hear of it being promoted. It doesn't seem to be spoken of through the broader media within Wales. And I suppose another point I'd ask you as well is on the communications side of things. It seems that the Welsh government and institutions such as the universities certainly need to up their game when it comes to communicating what they're doing, why they're doing it, where they're going with things. If you look at any of their socials, they need a little bit of work, shall we say?
Yeah.
So is that something that you can speak a bit about with your experiences?
So 100%. There's, I don't know if you know, the Welsh government has an international strategy, and it's up for renewal this year. And well, in the survey that we did, less than 10% of people in the Welsh diaspora knew that there was an international strategy. So there is one massive communications gap, and part of that strategy is engaging with the diaspora. So if the diaspora don't even know that report and that strategy exists, that's telling you something. So that's why we need to have members of the diaspora in the organizations, within the institutions, helping to co-create policy that's related to international activities and helping to share the communication that needs to be out there. And then organizations like Global Welsh, we can do the work in helping to promote out to the diaspora. We've already started to do things where we have the hubs, and we're reaching out to different regions. But if, for example, if North Wales wanted to contact us and their local council said, this is the information we want to share out with the diaspora, we can do that very easily. We have platforms to be able to do that. But it's having them engage with us to be able to share that information, because we realize that the government can't do it. They can't reach in that way that maybe we can. So that's why this partnership is very important. But there's communication's huge gap.
Yes, and obviously increasingly communicating well and effectively through social media, particularly nowadays, it is something that well, I think the whole of the United Kingdom doesn't seem to do particularly well comparatively to other nations, and I wonder how much of that in your view is hampered by Westminster or lack of policy maneuverability within Wales itself. Is there something from an entrepreneurial business development point of view that you'd like to see be devolved maybe to the Welsh government?
I think from what I can see, there's just no clear alignment in any of it, and so you don't know who's in charge of what, creating what vision. So for example, you've got Visit Wales promoting Wales in a particular way, you've got the business and industry promoting Wales in a particular way, and nobody seems to be talking to each other in making a consistent, coherent message. And I think that lack of consistency and coherency is one of the issues, and I think that does stem from having Westminster and then the Senedd and then Welsh government and then the offices around the world as well. We've got Welsh government offices, and sometimes I feel like maybe they don't know exactly what's going on in London, and then they might be hampered by what's happening within their embassy, because we've got the Welsh government within the British embassy here in Tokyo. And so what is the relationship and the communication that goes on inside there? I just think there's just so many parts at play, and there's a lack of communication and collaboration between.
And of course, with the Internal Markets Act that I think came in 2022, presumably that also hampers Wales a little bit with the way that you can innovate and take the nation off in a direction that might be different to other parts of the United Kingdom. Have you views on that, or how does one as an entrepreneur, if you come up against an Internal Markets Act, and it's stopping you from developing your business because it's going to, as far as that act's concerned, make your business more competitive than, say, comparative business in England or Scotland. And as I understand the act, it would prohibit you from doing that. So that's presumably squashing quite a lot of innovation.
Well, yeah, I would assume so. Yeah, I don't know enough about that, I don't think, to comment fully, but certainly from what you say, yeah, that would really hamper innovation and really, yeah. And from what I've experienced here, you see the people from, we have different trade, of course, there's different trade missions. So you have like the Welsh government trade mission of companies coming to Japan, and then you've got the Department of Trade and Industry, and they've got different events that are happening. And so the communication between those two groups during this year of Wales, Japan, what is the London, Westminster doing, what is Welsh government doing, and how do those work together? That's very much an issue, I think.
And I just remembered that the Japanese ambassador to the UK, obviously, he became a bit of a social media star with his ability to sing the Welsh national anthem, among other things. Is Wales doing something comparative to that with their representatives? You know, have we got characters out there in Japan that people can relate to?
In terms of the Welsh, good question. So in Japan, in terms of the promotion of Wales, we've got a couple of ex-Sony employees who worked in Wales in the 1970s, 1980s, and they're very passionate about Wales. And recently at the investment summit, one was talking very, very passionately about Wales, about Richard Burton, and about that kind of charismatic style among the business people. So he definitely had like a presence to explain Wales there. Then during the rugby, we had Koji Tokumatsu, who was basically, he brought the Rugby World Cup to Japan in 2019, and that all stemmed from his experience living in Cardiff and working in Wales. And he became enamored with rugby and then wanted to bring it to Japan and bring the Rugby World Cup. So he was very instrumental. So he's also kind of a Welsh de facto ambassador in Japan to kind of promote Wales. But aside from them, there's not really any other really strong. Yeah, we've got the Welsh rugby players that occasionally come through that help to promote Wales, but no one quite like the ambassador, who was really, really excellent. He was amazing. Yeah, he really did. He did a lot more for Wales, Japan than I've managed to do in the last 20 years, I felt, which is quite disheartening.
Well, he did have a government behind him, so
yeah, I guess.
So how do you see that the going forward then reviving? Well, not so much reviving, because you said there is the entrepreneurial spirit there. There is the hub. There is the talent within Wales. But how does one put in place the structures so that entrepreneurial spirit doesn't feel that it has to move to Japan or to the UAE in order to fulfill their ambitions? You know, you talked about the importance of connecting. There's a lot of need to address the post-industrial side of Wales, but equally there's some great opportunities there. With, you know, there's vast areas of undeveloped urban landscapes now, which are there to be built on or to be developed, and there's that. So how does one put in place the actions and the structures to make sure that those things go in the right direction, and they aren't just like those areas aren't just wastelands for the next few years, or individuals don't keep just leaving, even if it's just going down the M4 to London? Yeah,
we need to, I think, really meet people where they are. So it's investing a lot, I think, in community-led innovation, looking at placemaking in kind of the former coal mining areas, engaging in things like bilingual mentoring and mentorship, and using the Welsh language as well as a way to engage young people, improving digital access, I think, as well, to help kind of push the next generation forward, but helping young people especially to imagine that entrepreneurship it's not just tech, right? It's not just tech, it's not just startups. It is the small micro businesses that we have in Wales. It is the SMEs, it is social ventures that are going to kind of come out of these communities, I think, if we create the right environment around them to be able to let them thrive. And creative industry as well. The creative industries in Wales really are booming, we see. So I think there's such diversity in the way that we have kind of innovation and entrepreneurship in Wales, and we need to support that. And organisations like Global Welsh can then go in and work in projects in these areas, helping to connect with the diaspora, helping to connect locally and community-driven and community-based, because I think that's where we're going to have the most success. But I think for me, the kind of key areas of ideas of placemaking and working in community-led initiatives.
So there's obviously things like there's quite a lot of microbreweries and things like that in Wales now, encouraging those. But one of the things that I've learned from speaking to people that have started microbreweries and other sort of community-focused businesses is that the tax system doesn't suit them. So there's a need, and this is a question, is there a need for more tax powers so that where the Senate can then look at its communities, look at its entrepreneurial culture and hubs, and make decisions on how it structures taxes to encourage that internal ecosystem of economy. If everything's being driven from Westminster, Westminster doesn't necessarily know what's happening in the valleys, with some microbrewery that's just set up, and how that's getting affected by certain taxes. So how can people maybe that want to be entrepreneurial or have business ideas, is there a way that they can is there a classic business administration way or an entrepreneurial approach to addressing that particular struggle, I guess?
Oh, that's a tricky one. I honestly don't know. To be honest, I think we need the tax system needs to change, right? It needs to support and recognize these people that are trying to do this. That's a really hard one to answer.
You talk about the maybe some of the support that Japan has a history of having support and families working around smaller businesses that then become multinationals.
Yes.
But a lot of that obviously comes because of having the governmental support.
Yes, definitely.
But as I see it, the Senate doesn't have that power to.
No.
So presumably that's something that would need to be devolved from Westminster.
Yes, agreed. Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
And so do you also? So one of the culture aspects of Wales, there's quite a bit of, I guess, inbuilt deference things. And do you think that maybe Wales is a bit too polite, perhaps?
Yeah, I think so. I think that that maybe there's a reluctance to kind of challenge any gatekeepers or disrupt systems. But I kind of get a sense, I don't know because I'm not there, kind of get a sense from the media that this might be changing, that there there might be a little bit more kind of energy behind disruption, and a recognition that like change requires discomfort, and that people might be a little bit more comfortable feeling discomfort. So I think we need to be a lot more truthful and a lot more open in discussions, and have a lot more debate about the negative things that are happening in Wales, and the things that we need to change and the things we need to address, especially from young people. I think we need younger people to be a lot more outspoken in some ways, to push the narrative, to push and say, look, I want to stay in Wales, but how can I do that? How can I stay? How can I help me to find the jobs, help me to set up my business here so I don't have to leave? Because you're right, there is this feeling when they get to 18, 19, go to university outside of Wales, and then very rarely return back. So I think, people need to be a little bit more, a little bit more disruptive, possibly. And politeness shouldn't mean being passive, right? It should also mean you can be active and polite and push boundaries at the same time. So maybe we need to get a little bit better at doing that.
It's something that's come up in a lot of the conversations I've had with Welsh diaspora, is the feeling from the diaspora that those that are in Wales still are reluctant to accept change. And obviously when you're innovating in business and when you're an entrepreneur, you need to be able to adapt quickly, and you need to have that mindset, and that, but not just the individual mindset, because as we've already discussed, there are many individuals that do have that ability, but the infrastructure. But the mindset of the civil service, shall we say, within Wales is very much, oh no, we can't do that.
Just on that point, one thing that came out of the research last year when I was interviewing people that wanted to move back to Wales and wanted to work in the civil service, they felt they couldn't, because they're even getting a foot in through the door. They felt there was so much nepotism within a lot of the organizations and institutions within Wales. They couldn't step back in. They wanted to come back from overseas, but they couldn't because there was that barrier. And then the second barrier, if they did manage to get in, people thinking, well, you've come back with this idea from X country, and you've come back here, you don't know what it's really like living in Wales, you don't know, so it's better to be quiet and just to follow the status quo, and we're afraid to give ideas and to share their perspectives from different countries. And that's institutional, right? That's an institutional issue, and that's scary. That's really scary. That kind of impression that the diaspora have, that they were so closed to be able to enter.
But it's also it's very much contrast to, as we've already discussed, the Irish approach, which is, yes, come here, come back, tell us about your experiences, help us reshape the country, you know, bring your money, bring your families. We want you here. But I guess that's just something that people have to work through over generations and get their heads into.
Yeah, definitely.
I was assuming that many of what we talked about occurs, and these changes can happen, and perhaps if there's a change in government and Senate next year, maybe that would be more favourable towards entrepreneurs. Who knows? How would you envision or like to see Wales developing so that it is shaped over the next 15 years, say, into a country that you would think is going down the right road with the entrepreneurship and business development?
I think Wales needs to be bold. I want to see a bold Wales, a Wales that's globally respected as a small nation and looked to as a good case study of a small nation, and is respected, and other countries can learn from what we do with the diaspora, what we do with our industry and entrepreneurship. I'd like it to be a very vibrant mix of maintaining that local pride that we have, but also with a strong global ambition and to be a global forward-looking Wales. I'd like to see kind of economically more kind of cooperative models, more tech clusters connected with maybe social purpose as well, and much stronger ties with the diaspora to do things like that. Constitutionally, it's for the people to decide. We don't know what's going to happen there, but I hope that Wales can develop and Welsh people can develop a confidence to really find their own path and to find their own vision of a new Wales that we can promote on the global stage to make us a very globally respected small nation.
Okay, diolch yn fawr, Dr. Sarah Louisa Birchley.
Thank you.
If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe and stay tuned for more conversations with people who want to build the future of Wales. And do go and find, like and enjoy new.wales across all your favourite social media channels.